Chapter 71 The Long Family's Brothers and Sisters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Illyrio looked at the brother and sister in front of him. They both had silver hair and purple eyes. Both men and women were extremely handsome, especially Daenerys next to him. She had breathtaking beauty and a graceful and tall figure. Her skin was as delicate as mutton-fat white jade, exuding a soft luster, as if it had been caressed by the moonlight. Her silver hair fell down like a waterfall on her slender back, soft and shining. Her eyes were like deep amethysts, mysterious and charming, and her eyebrows were like curved crescent moons, which perfectly highlighted the sparkle in her eyes. Illyrio was a little moved when he saw it, but he quickly restrained his desire and said to Viserys, "Your Majesty Viserys, I am deeply saddened by the fact that the usurper stole your throne. Panto-C has had frequent contacts with the Targaryens since the time of the Conqueror, and we have hosted countless members of the Targaryen family. You are the legitimate heir to the Iron Throne, and I would like to invite you to come with me to Pentos." After hearing this, Viserys felt a little excited and a little confused. He asked, "Governor Illyrio, aren't you afraid of the usurper?" "Why do you want to help me?" Illyrio complimented, "Your Majesty, you are a true dragon and the only legal heir to the Iron Throne. Countless people in the Seven Kingdoms are looking forward to your return. Once you lead your army to Westeros, countless people the Lord will respond to your call and fight the rebellion for you. Even though I am a Pentosian, I am willing to help you regain your throne." Viserys was very excited after hearing this and asked hurriedly, "Then how many troops can you provide me? After I take back the Iron Throne, you can choose the lands of the Seven Kingdoms as you like, and I will make you a prince." Hearing Viserys' question, Illyrio was a little confused for a moment. He had not yet reached an agreement with Khal Drogo because of the hasty plan. He had just invited the other party, but he was confident in the plan, so Illyrio continued, "Your Majesty, I'm afraid I've disappointed you. I only have some guards and mercenaries, which may not be enough to serve as your army. But I still have some money to support you, and I have already established a relationship with the Dothraki Zodiac. Gorkoel has agreed that as long as you marry Princess Daenerys to him, he will dedicate his 40,000 Dothraki cavalry to fight for you to regain the Iron Throne." Viserys felt happy after hearing this, and then thought of last night's plan. At present, nothing could be as attractive as that dragon. Rumor has it that the dragon is more than 10 meters long and must be quite powerful. If you have a dragon, why don't you have an army? Thinking of this, he said perfunctorily, "Governor Illyrio, thank you for your kindness. Please allow me to think about this matter." Illyrio was a little disappointed after hearing this. He knew that this matter should not be too hasty, so he adjusted his mentality and bowed, "Your Majesty, I look forward to your reply." Daenerys listened to her brother talking to the strange governor, as if he was selling her back and forth like a commodity. She felt sad and scared. She thought of Viserys' plan last night, and felt even more scared. She remembered that they once lived in a house by the sea with a red door. At that time, her brother often told her stories, taught her Valyrian, and coaxed her to sleep. Their days were very happy. Until William Darry died and they left the mansion, Viserys kept running around, and there were fewer and fewer things in the house to sell. Viserys' temper became worse and worse, and he beat and scolded her frequently, but she could only rely on her brother, feeling both afraid and dependent on him. Thinking of the plan Viserys told her last night, Gavin Bellerys owns a dragon. Tomorrow's banquet is an opportunity. You need to find an opportunity to get close to him. As long as you can make him like you, we can follow him. As long as you confirm the dragon's existence and kill him, I will seize the dragon and take back the throne that belongs to me." She just said that she didn't dare to kill, and was beaten and kicked by Viserys. Viserys didn't stop until he was tired. He said to Daenerys, "The bed is when a person is most relaxed. Once he takes a fancy to you, you have a chance." Suddenly, Viserys grabbed her arm suddenly, interrupting her thoughts. "Don't be dazed, now is a perfect opportunity, let's go over." After having a fruitless conversation with Neptune, Gavin ended the conversation on the pretext that he wanted to taste the delicacies of Bravos after a few perfunctory words, and moved to a table piled with food. At this moment, Gavin saw two people with silver hair and purple eyes walking towards him, and he immediately guessed that these must be the two Targaryen brothers and sisters. After Viserys brought Daenerys to Gavin, he said arrogantly, "Hello, Sir Gavin, I am Viserys Targaryen III. The legitimate king of the Iron Throne. This is my sister, Princess Daenerys Targaryen." After hearing this introduction, Gavin secretly cursed, "Does this mean that I have to address you as your Majesty?" Then, Gavin responded with a hint of sarcasm, "I have heard of you, the exiled Targaryen brothers and sisters." Hearing what Gavin said, Viserys' face instantly turned red, and he gritted his teeth and said, "I am the legitimate heir of the Seven Kingdoms. I heard that you own a fleet and a dragon. If you can help me regain the Iron Throne, I am willing to marry my sister to you, and the lands of the Seven Kingdoms are at your disposal." Gavin smiled slightly after hearing this and said, "Thank you for your respect, Viserys, but the price is too high. With only one dragon and a fleet, it is difficult for me to conquer Westeros. Even if I have this strength, after seizing the Iron Throne, why don't I sit on it myself?" When Viserys heard Gavin's words, he was speechless with embarrassment. At this time, Daenerys on the side suddenly asked, "Sir Gavin, do you really have a dragon?" Gavin explained softly, "It's absolutely true, that is a dragon with golden scales. I named it Blazing Shadow." Daenerys immediately said excitedly, "Can I see it?" Viserys on the side intervened at this time, "Even if you successfully conquer Westeros, you can never sit on the Iron Throne. The people of the Seven Kingdoms only recognize Targaryen." Gavin looked at Viserys without saying a word, then turned to Daenerys and said, "Okay, if you want to see it, I will take you there later." Then he looked at Viserys and said, 300 years ago, the people of the Seven Kingdoms did not recognize Targaryen. Rule depends on strength, not pure recognition. If you expect me to help you regain the Iron Throne, I am also a member of the Valyrian Dragon King family. Descendants, if you need help, I can help, for example, provide a sum of money to improve your current situation. Chapter 72, Give the Princess Away for Free. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After hearing this, Viserys immediately said, "How much can you give me? Besides, aren't you Blackfire?" Gavin pondered for a moment and then responded, 10,000 gold dragons, enough to buy a house in Bravos and maintain a long life. Besides, I am not Blackfire. If the Targaryen family still retains the freedom according to the records of the fortress, you must have heard of the Bellerys family. After hearing this, Viserys looked a little embarrassed. There are indeed some records, but they are all left in the Red Keep. At this moment, Neptune walked over, followed by an acquaintance of Gavin, who was the envoy that Rhys sent to the Stepstone Islands. Neptune walked up to Gavin and said, "Sir Gavin, how about I take you to see the Beast Garden?" Gavin immediately responded, "I have long heard that His Highness Neptune's zoo contains all kinds of rare birds and animals from the entire known world. Thanks to your kind invitation, I can finally feast my eyes on it today." Neptune introduced the person next to Gavin, "Sir Gavin, this is His Royal Highness Neptune, we are acquainted. He once went to the Stepstone Islands as an envoy." Gavin interrupted Neptune's introduction, "We meet again, Rhys's envoy. I wonder if you have brought the news back to the Thorne family." Then looked at the messenger from Rhys and said hello. The envoy from Lys had an angry look on his face, "Humph. Sir Gavin really cherishes his life. I heard that you came to Bravos as a guest and even brought a fleet with you. It seems that Sir Gavin really doesn't understand etiquette." After hearing this, Gavin said calmly, "If you have heard everything, you should know that I not only brought the fleet." The envoy from Rhys immediately mocked loudly, "Yes, I heard that you brought a dragon with you. We are going to the zoo to see the beasts, why not let us see the dragon first?" His voice was very loud, attracting people. Everyone attending the banquet looked at this place one after another. Neptune, who wanted to smooth things over, immediately fell silent when he heard these words. He also wanted to see Gavin's dragon. Although countless accurate news mentioned the existence of dragons, but he could not see it with his own eyes. Neptune still had a feeling in his heart. Doubt, looking at the banquet that fell into silence for a while, Gavin smiled slightly and said, "Since you want to see it, then I will be satisfied." After speaking, Gavin stretched out his right hand, and a ball of flame suddenly rushed from the palm of his hand toward the sky. The flame continued to expand and rise until it formed a fireball with a diameter of more than 50 meters in the air nearly 100 meters away. Gavin's mysterious method shocked everyone in the venue. Everyone looked at the huge flame in the sky with horror. Then, a roar came from the flames, and the blazing shadow that felt Gavin's heart rushed out of the flames, circled in the air, and then swooped down quickly. The blazing shadow fell in the square, and the strong air flow brought by the landing swept away in all directions. For a moment, countless tables were overturned, and people screamed and ran away. Neptune was already too frightened to move. Looking at the slowly approaching giant beast, his fear and oppression became more intense. The Lys envoy on the side was in even more embarrassing condition, trembling all over. The dragon's eyes were staring at him closely. The huge dragon had slowly approached until it was only 1 meter away from him, and then opened its mouth enough to swallow him in one bite. The giant mouth let out a deafening roar at him, and he immediately sat down on the ground. Liquid flowed out from his crotch, and a strange smell came out. Viserys, who felt the power of the dragon at close range, was also stunned. On the contrary, Daenerys next to him looked at Blazing Shadow with a look of fascination. Gavin saw that the envoy from Lys was stunned by fright, and said to Neptune with a smile, "I'm sorry, Your Highness, for disturbing your banquet. I think this envoy from Lys needs to take a bath and change his clothes." Hearing Gavin's voice, Neptune regained his composure and hurriedly said to Gavin, "It doesn't matter, this is the banquet prepared for you." Then Neptune said, "Sir Gavin, please forgive me for my poor hospitality. I will need to change my clothes when I go back to receive you." Gavin immediately responded, "You don't have to be polite, His Highness Neptune, it was me who caused you trouble." Then, under the command of the Sea King, the servants bravely came to Chiang shivering and dragged away the Lys envoy who had already fainted. As Gavin and Neptune were talking to each other, Viserys, who had just been stunned, gradually woke up and looked at Red Shadow, his face full of excitement. At this time, Gavin looked at Daenerys and said softly, "You just asked to see the dragon, now you can touch it." After hearing this, Daenerys asked in surprise, "Is it okay, Sir Gavin?" Gavin nodded. Daenerys boldly walked towards Blazing Shadow, and as the distance between her and Blazing Shadow narrowed, her steps became slower and slower. Seemingly feeling the presence of the Dragon King's bloodline, Chiang showed no resistance to Daenerys' approach. At this moment, Viserys walked quickly to Gavin and said, "Sir Gavin, I want to marry my sister to you." Gavin laughed after hearing this. "Didn't I say it? I can't help you take back the Iron Throne." Viserys immediately waved his hand and said, No, I don't need you to take back the Iron Throne for me, but I hope you can protect us. The killers sent by the usurper are constantly searching for us. I can no longer protect Dan by myself. Nellis." Gavin was filled with doubts when he heard this, and he was secretly wary. Giving away a princess for nothing was not in line with Viserys' character at all. The only 2 cards he had in his hand now were the right to claim, and the other she is his sister. Suddenly, seeing Viserys' unconcealed excitement, Gavin understood that Viserys had set his sights on Blazing Shadow. However, thinking that Daenerys was one of his targets, it made sense to refuse her. As for Viserys' possible plots and tricks, they were nothing to worry about in the face of absolute strength. Seeing that Gavin didn't speak, Viserys immediately said, "My sister has pure Dragon King blood, and will definitely give birth to a qualified heir for you, and she is beautiful, isn't she?" Hearing this, Gavin agreed to Viserys and said, "Okay, I agree. If your request is just for shelter, then I can do it. The Iron Throne can recruit hundreds of thousands of troops, but they will never cross the narrow sea." At this time, Daenerys, who was trying to get close to Blazing Shadow, heard the conversation behind her and felt very complicated. Gavin's proposal to help them just now made her feel the other party's kindness. As a descendant of Valyria, his silver-haired and purple-eyed appearance also made her feel good. Since contacting Gavin, the other party has always spoken softly to her. She was terrified and worried about her brother's plan. How could she bring herself to do it? Chapter 73 The Death of Viserys. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's okay, Chiaying won't hurt you, touch it. At this moment, Gavin's voice came from behind, interrupting Daenerys's thoughts, and then she gently stroked Chiaying's neck with Gavin's encouragement. Chiaying looked back at the unfamiliar Daenerys, then turned her head and ignored her. At this time, the servants had relayed the overturned table and quickly cleaned up the food residue on the ground. Many servants re-entered the venue with fresh and delicious food, and in just a moment, the venue was restored to its original state. The only difference was the huge golden dragon lying in the center of the square. In the chaotic crowd, two men were staring at Viserys and Daenerys. One of them said, "The chaos just now was a great opportunity." Another person immediately retorted, "Why didn't you take action just now? Those two targets were too close to the dragon." Soon, the King of the Sea also changed into a brand new dress and came to the banquet again. He walked quickly to Gavin and said modestly, "Sir Gavin, let's go. I will take you to visit my menagerie." Gavin immediately responded respectfully, "Then I will trouble you, Your Highness the Sea King." At this time, the Sea King cast his eyes on Viserys and Daenerys beside him and said, "Two distinguished guests of the Targaryen family, why don't you come and visit together?" Viserys immediately replied, "Thank you, Your Highness the Sea King, for your kindness. I won't go. Let my sister accompany Sir Gavin." Then he walked to Daenerys, patted her shoulder gently, and whispered in a low voice while no one was paying attention, "Be good." Then he walked towards the dining table that had just been filled with food. Gavin also walked to Chiaying's side to comfort him and asked him to stay here. Afterwards, Gavin and Daenerys, led by the Sea King, walked slowly towards the menagerie behind the Sea King's palace, the water dancer standing guard in the distance and Gavin's blood dragon guards immediately followed behind. The guards who had been watching the banquet closely before were greatly reduced in an instant. The two men who had been staring at Viserys and Daenerys saw Viserys leave alone and walk to a table full of food. One of them said, "He is far away from the dragon. This is a great opportunity, but there is one less target. Do you want to do it?" That the other one replied, "One is one. The Iron Throne pays per head. One is worth 2,000 gold dragons. This money is enough for our two families." After that, he rolled up his sleeves, revealing a large piece of grey scaly skin on his arm, stared at Viserys in the distance and said, "We don't have much time left." The two looked at each other, as if they had made up their minds, and walked towards Viserys. At this time, Gavin and others were strolling in the menagerie. The Sea King introduced these rare and exotic animals to Gavin from time to time, which really opened Gavin's eyes. Gavin had already seen that the Sea King seemed to have an almost morbid hobby of collecting. Whether it was treasures or wild beasts, anything rare would be collected by him. He might even want to collect Blazing Shadow. There were many animals in the menagerie that Gavin had never seen before, such as hairy rat pigs the size of cows, stinging scorpion tails, tigers that put their young in bags, and terrifying lizards that walked upright and had sickle-like claws. Just as Gavin and others were strolling leisurely, a servant suddenly rushed into the menagerie in a panic. He was extremely nervous and stuttered when he narrated, but Gavin still understood. Just now, Viserys, who was eating at the banquet, was stabbed in the heart from the back with a dagger. The two murderers wanted to leave, but were burned to ashes by Blazing Shadow's dragon flame. When Daenerys heard the news, her body trembled and her face turned pale in an instant. Her beautiful eyes were full of shock and disbelief, and tears welled up in her eyes. "How is this possible? How could this happen?" she murmured to herself, her voice trembling. Gavin frowned tightly, and he comforted Daenerys, saying, "Daenerys, don't panic, let's find out who is behind this first." The Sea King also had a serious look on his face, and immediately ordered to seal off the scene and investigate the murderer. Shui Wu, who was beside him, took the order and went immediately. Then the Sea King came to Daenerys, bowed deeply, and said with guilt on his face, "Princess Daenerys, I am deeply sorry for your brother's death. You are my guests, but you suffered such harm at the banquet I hosted. Please rest assured that I will give you an explanation for this matter." I will not give up until I find out the real culprit behind the scenes. Daenerys did not bother to answer, her body trembled slightly, as if her body had lost the strength to support it and was about to fall. Her eyes were empty, and she murmured, Viserys. He left me just like that. Daenerys fainted in Gavin's arms. The Sea King expressed his apologies again, and then turned to arrange more people to strengthen the investigation. Gavin also picked up Daenerys and followed closely to comfort the blazing shadow. At this time, everyone at the banquet fell into chaos and panic. People whispered and talked about the cause of the assassination and the mastermind behind it. The Sea King is indeed the most powerful person in Braavos. In less than an hour, the troublesome murderer's situation was clearly understood. Although the two people had been burned to ashes by Blazing Shadow's dragon flames, with the powerful power and efficient methods of Neptune, through detailed questioning and checking the guest list carefully, their identities soon came to light. It turned out that these two people were the first mate and sailor on a merchant ship. According to their captain's account, their merchant ship had just returned to Braavos from Volantis 3 days ago. While sailing on the ship, the two men had always looked extremely abnormal. After arriving in Braavos, the captain also found that they had talked with several Westeros people, but he didn't pay much attention to them at the time. Who would have thought that they would catch up with this banquet hosted by Neptune? After hearing the results of the investigation, Daenerys, who had just woken up, murmured, "It turns out to be the Iron Throne. Why won't he let us go?" Her voice was full of pain and indignation, and her beautiful face was filled with anger and dissatisfaction. Salt and slightly twisted. Tears rolled in her eyes, but she stubbornly refused to fall. Her clenched fists seemed to be venting the endless anger in her heart. Gavin stood aside, his brows furrowed, and his heart could not calm down for a long time. Why did Viserys die? Gavin knew very well that after he came to this world, his existence has changed too many things in the future. Presumably this time assassins were sent because of his presence. Chapter 74, Soaring in Danger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After suppressing the complicated thoughts in his heart, Gavin said to Daenerys, "It's okay Daenerys, I promised your brother that I will not let you get hurt, and we will do it for Viserys in the future. Seek justice." Neptune also comforted him, "Don't worry, Princess, Braavos will stand with you." Daenerys knew in her heart that she would never be able to avenge Viserys' blood by herself. She silently looked at Gavin aside. At this time, the only person she could rely on was Gavin. Gavin also looked at Daenerys, and the two looked at each other. At this time, she had not yet become the mother of dragons with a long list of titles in the future, had not experienced betrayal, and had not lost her children and lovers. Now she is just a timid little girl. Gavin gently patted her shoulder to comfort her and said, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Then Gavin said goodbye to Neptune. "Your Highness, I'm afraid I won't be able to attend today's banquet. Please allow me to take Daenerys and leave first. In addition, can you please help your people to collect Viserys' body? I want to give him a funeral worthy of a Valyrian dragon king tomorrow." Neptune immediately apologized and said, "Sir Gavin, please leave these matters to me. I failed to entertain you well. It's a pity that something like this happened. The Moonsong Temple will hold a celebration in Braavos 2 days later. At that time, Sir Gavin can take Princess Daenerys for a nice stroll, and then please wait for my messenger, and I will make amends for what happened today." After bidding farewell to Neptune, Gavin did not intend to ride back in the comfortable Will Palace. Instead, he climbed onto Blazing Shadow's dragon's back, held the reins tightly, and then extended his right hand to Daenerys, gesturing for her to ride on the dragon together. Back. Daenerys took a deep breath, bravely climbed onto Blazing Shadow's back, and straddled Gavin's arms. Following Gavin's command, Blazing Shadow spread out its huge and strong wings and flew high into the air. Powerful airflow instantly spurted out in all directions, kicking up sand and dust on the ground and forming a small tornado. They soared into the sky on Blazing Shadow, roaring straight into the sky. Daenerys' silver hair was flying wildly in the strong wind, and her heart was beating violently with excitement and nervousness. The dragon soared over Braavos, its huge wings beating powerfully, sending up a gust of wind with every flap. The city's buildings became smaller and smaller under their feet, like miniature toy models. The people in Bravos stopped what they were doing and looked up at the dragon in the sky, their eyes full of shock and awe. Some people marveled at the hugeness and majesty of this magical creature and secretly speculated on its purpose. Some were so shocked by this spectacular sight that they stood blank on the spot, and their minds went blank. Still others prayed silently in their hearts, hoping that this was not a sign of disaster. In a corner of the Neptune Palace Square, Illyrio watched helplessly as the dragon took Daenerys away. Feeling anxious in his heart, he frowned, veins popped out on his forehead, and his hands unconsciously clenched into fists. He cursed in his mind, regretting that he had not come here earlier, and even more afraid that all his plans would fail. Gavin and Daenerys flew toward the seaside on Blazing Shadow. Soon it flew above the vast sea. It lowered its altitude and flew almost close to the sea. The waves were lifted up by the dragon's wings and turned into countless crystal water splashes, shining brightly under the sunlight. Daenerys felt the roar of the sea breeze and the spray of the waves. The exciting feeling made her scream loudly. She had never experienced such freedom and joy, as if all her worries, stress and sadness were forgotten. Every flutter of the dragon's wings and every fight with the sea breeze filled her heart with unprecedented joy and courage. After flying for who knows how long, the blazing shadow gradually rose, leading them to rush into the vast blue sky again. Flying towards Bravos, after a heart-pounding flight experience, Daenerys felt much better. Chiaying's majestic figure slowly landed in the garden of the seaside courtyard, stirring up a breeze and causing the petals to dance. Gavin held Daenerys and jumped off Blazing Shadow's dragon's back lightly. As soon as Daenerys' feet landed on the ground, she raised her eyes to look at Gavin, her eyes full of gratitude and joy. She knew in her heart that Gavin took her on this wonderful flying journey in order to help her get rid of her sorrow. Blushing, she opened her arms and hugged Gavin, and said softly, "Thank you, Sir Gavin." Gavin smiled, gently stroked her hair and said, "It doesn't matter, this is what I should do. Now you are mine, my fiancé, right?" Gavin's words made Daenerys's cheeks blush even more, and she turned around shyly. Afterwards, Gavin led Daenerys towards the house in the courtyard. At this time, the captain of the guard walked quickly toward Gavin with an eager look on his face. He hesitated to speak when he saw Daenerys beside him. Seeing this, Gavin turned to Daenerys and said softly, "Go pick a room here." Daenerys was so excited that she came to this house with such beautiful scenery for the first time. Her eyes sparkled and she couldn't wait to say, "Thank you, Gavin." After saying that, she ran towards the house like a cheerful bird. Then, Gavin looked at the blood dragon guard who had already returned here. The other party understood instantly, and several strong figures quickly followed, closely guarding Daenerys. Gavin looked at the guard captain again, with a questioning look in his eyes. "What happened?" The captain of the guards immediately replied, "Sir, someone tried to sneak into this villa today. A soldier dressed the same as us could not answer the command, and 5 soldiers besieged him, but he injured 3 of them and fled." He looked at the captain of the guards and ordered, "It seems that we are being targeted. Continue to strengthen the vigilance, especially the servants here are not allowed to go out, to prevent the other party from dressing up as servants and sneaking in." "Yes, sir, I will arrange it now." The captain of the guards nodded solemnly and turned to arrange the matters of strengthening the defense. Gavin looked at his back as he left, and he pondered in his heart, and couldn't help worrying whether he would really be targeted by the Faceless. Fortunately, the soldiers he brought this time were trained using the Unsullied training method. Under his customized requirements, the difference between these people and the Unsullied is that they are not castrated and have mastered some more sailing skills. Even because they are not castrated, their combat effectiveness is much stronger. If it weren't for the time required for training, Gavin would have purchased them on a large scale long ago. Apart from that, Gavin felt that the other party was not much different from the pure Unsullied in terms of obeying orders, and because of Gavin's 8-year service system, the soldiers who were eager to gain freedom were more motivated to obey his orders. Chapter 75, Remarks on the Launch. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When I typed this line, I was very excited. My work is about to be put on the shelves. I can reach this step of being put on the shelves, and I really can't do without every reader who supports me. It is your every reading, every like, and every comment that constantly gives me the motivation to move forward. your encouragement and companionship have made me never feel lonely on this road of creation. This is my first work. As a fledgling new author, I have many unsatisfactory aspects in the plot and setting. After constant exploration, I finally made some progress. In the subsequent plot, Gavin's focus will be on Essos, and some stories about Westeros will be interspersed. After the listing, I sincerely hope that everyone can support me as always. Every support from everyone is a great encouragement to me. Of course, if you have any opinions and suggestions on the work, you are welcome to put them forward at any time. I will accept them humbly and do my best to improve it. Chapter 76, Old Valyrian Funeral. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At night, Gavin lay on the soft bed, his thoughts intertwined in a mess. His eyes flickered in the darkness, thinking about the possible attack of the Faceless Men. At this moment, he hesitated in his heart whether to arrest the envoy of Lys and torture him. He had just learned the other party's residence. It would be easy to do it, but this is Braavos after all, the territory of Neptune. Such behavior is really unreasonable. Somewhat disrespectful to Aquaman. Although this guy Neptune said that he was not a good person, at least in terms of entertaining him as a guest, Gavin really couldn't find anything wrong with him. Involuntarily, Gavin thought of the family sword placed in the Neptune's treasure house again. As for how to get it, Gavin racked his brains and couldn't come up with any effective method. He couldn't really let the dragon snatch it away. At this moment, Daenerys came outside Gavin's room wearing a long white gauze nightgown. The blood dragon guards waiting here turned a blind eye to Gavin's previous orders. Seeing that these silent fire-eyed guards did not stop her, Daenerys' nervous mood relaxed slightly and she breathed a sigh of relief unconsciously. Daenerys gently pushed open the door of Gavin's room. The sound of opening the door startled Gavin, who was thinking. He turned his head and saw Daenerys walking in. The moonlight shines on her silver white hair, which is extremely beautiful. The pajamas made of white gauze made the graceful figure looming. Looking at the exceptionally beautiful Daenerys, Gavin couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Daenerys blushed and walked to Gavin's bed. The two looked at each other. For a moment, a strange emotion spread between them. Daenerys said softly, "I'm a little scared to be alone." Then she lay down and got into Gavin's arms without waiting for Gavin's answer. Gavin didn't speak, but just held her tightly. Daenerys said softly, "I'm sorry, Gavin, actually my brother wanted to. I want you to help him capture my dragon, right?" Gavin's voice interrupted Daenerys. After hearing this, Daenerys was horrified and looked at Gavin in front of her with wide eyes. Gavin smiled and reassured, "Don't be afraid, it's okay. Your brother Viserys wants to regain the Iron Throne. He is willing to pay any price and means for this. It is not surprising that he has this idea." After hearing this, Daenerys whispered, "Then why are you still willing to agree to marry me?" Gavin stroked her hair and said, "Of course it's because of you, and I believe your brother can't take away my dragon. Don't take it too seriously, Daenerys, you just can't help yourself. I won't care. This matter." After hearing this, Daenerys rubbed her head in his arms and said, "Thank you, Gavin." Gavin held Daenerys in his arms and the two slept in each other's arms. Early the next morning, Tyrion came to Gavin's seaside house again, pacing in the garden and waiting. After hearing the report, Gavin took Daenerys' hand and slowly came to the garden to greet her. After the two of them walked in front of Tyrion, Gavin said politely, "I'm very sorry for keeping you waiting for so long." Tyrion immediately returned the greeting and said, "No problem, I am here under the orders of the Sea King to inform Sir Gavin that the funeral of His Majesty Viserys has been prepared and will be on the seaside south of Braavos. In addition, His Royal Highness the Sea King let me express my apologies on his behalf for not being able to attend the funeral due to physical reasons." After hearing this, Gavin first glanced at Daenerys and saw that her face was pale and her expression was sad. Then Gavin said to Tyrion, "It doesn't matter, it's already troublesome for His Highness Neptune's help. Now that we are ready, let's set off." With that said, he grabbed Daenerys and set foot on the luxurious Wheel Palace outside the courtyard. The Wheel Palace shuttled through the streets of Braavos. After walking for more than an hour, they finally reached a cliff near the sea. On the cliff at this time, a huge pyre made of wood was particularly eye-catching, and Viserys in a gorgeous robe lay quietly on it. Seeing Viserys lying there, Daenerys's eyes instantly turned red, and memories of the past came flooding back. When she was young, her brother's care and companionship for her, those warm moments were constantly emerging in her mind. However, everything had faded. She bit her lip tightly, as if she had made up her mind, holding back tears. She looked at Gavin, who was holding her with a determined look, and nodded slightly. Gavin understood it and called out to Blazing Shadow in his heart. Chiang flapped its huge wings, like a black shadow across the sky, flying towards the cliff by the sea. When it approached the cliff, it spread its wings and slowed down. Its huge body landed steadily on the ground. The moment its claws touched the ground, a cloud of dust was stirred up. Blazing Shadow stretched his neck and moved closer to Viserys lying on the fire, as if he was identifying something. Its nostrils quivered, as if it smelled the blood of the deceased Dragon King, and then it couldn't help but let out a low and sad cry. The sound echoed among the cliffs, revealing endless sadness. Gavin pulled Daenerys away from the pyre, and ordered to Blazing Shadow, Dragon Flame. Blazing Shadow took a deep breath, its chest rose and fell violently, then opened its mouth, and a blazing dragon flame spurted out. It came out and instantly swallowed up Viserys and the pyre beneath him. In the raging fire, Viserys' figure gradually blurred. Daenerys looked at her brother, who was gradually turning into ashes in the fire, tears welling up in her eyes, but she resisted not letting it fall. Her expression was both sad and relieved. She turned to look at Gavin and said with a trembling voice, "Thank you, Gavin. It has been more than 100 years since a Targaryen received a burial so befitting the Valyrian Dragon King." Gavin nodded and said, "It's okay, this is what I should do. I just hope you won't be sad anymore." Daenerys took a deep breath and tried to calm herself down. "I will go on with my brother's determination." After hearing this, Gavin gently patted her shoulder to comfort her. After the funeral, Gavin took Daenerys to ride the Red Shadow to the seaside villa. The Red Shadow drew a graceful arc in the air, and the wind whistled in the ears. Not long after, they flew back to the villa by the sea. When landing, Gavin saw a middle-aged man in a red robe and a beard standing outside the courtyard. The man looked anxious, and it was obvious that he had been waiting here early. Daenerys, who also saw it, said to Gavin, "His name is Illyrio. He took the initiative to find Viserys at the banquet that day and was willing to support him to regain the Iron Throne, but he needed to marry me to the Dothraki Horse King in exchange for 40,000 cavalry." Gavin heard it and instantly understood the identity and intention of this person. After jumping off the dragon, Gavin thought for a moment and said to Daenerys, "Anyway, he is a guest, it's good to meet him." Daenerys nodded slightly. "Sorry, readers, this is the first time I put it on the shelves. I turned off the automatic release, so I didn't know how to operate it for a while, and it was late. I hope you can understand. I won't do it from tomorrow. In addition, I don't have so many manuscripts in stock, so I can't do anything. I will add more chapters for the time being. I am not busy recently. With the pitiful manuscripts in stock, I can update 3 chapters a day. Please understand the new author." Chapter 77 Illyrio's Lobbying. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Illyrio, who was invited into the other courtyard, walked towards Gavin and Daenerys with steady steps. His fat body was wrapped in a luxurious silk robe, which was embroidered with dazzling gold thread patterns, shining brightly. Illyrio bowed respectfully. "Honorable Sir Gavin, beautiful Princess Daenerys, it is a great honor for me to meet you too." Illyrio's face was filled with a flattering smile. His eyes wandered back and forth between Gavin and Daenerys, then he looked at Daenerys and said, "Your Highness, I am deeply saddened and sorry for the death of His Majesty Viserys." He sighed softly. The sighs seemed to be filled with endless sorrow. "I wonder if Her Royal Highness the Princess still harbors the ambition to regain the Iron Throne. The proposal I made yesterday is actually very feasible." Gavin frowned slightly and interjected, "Governor Illyrio, Daenerys has already told me about your proposal yesterday. However, just yesterday, Viserys had betrothed Daenerys to me. Governor Leo, if you propose to marry my fiancée to King Ma again in front of me, I will regard it as a great insult to me." The blood dragon guards on the side also took a step forward and pulled out the sharp sword in their hands with a swish. The sword body flashed with a cold light, and the atmosphere suddenly became tense. The pressure brought by the 2-meter-tall blood dragon guard made Illyrio tremble with fear, and he quickly said, "No, no, no, I don't know about this. Please forgive me for being presumptuous." He said as he spoke, he hurriedly wiped the big beads of sweat on his forehead, and turned to Gavin. "Sir Gavin, now that you have such a powerful help as the dragon, and you are about to marry Princess Daenerys, you have a strong hold on the false king. What do you think about the throne? If you want to seize the Iron Throne, I will fully support you." Gavin sneered in his heart. He had already understood this guy's thoughts, and he was just trying to recruit his own power to pave the way for his Aegon. Thinking of this, he said slowly, "Governor Illyrio, it doesn't matter what I think. The Iron Throne will never give up after learning that I married Daenerys, but they can't cross the narrow sea, and I can't attack Weiss. Teo, I can only guard the Stone Steps Islands for now. If I have the chance, I will naturally take back what belongs to my wife." Daenerys stood aside, quietly observing the conversation between the two, and had her own plans in mind. There was a solemn look on her beautiful face, and the light of wisdom shone in her purple eyes. She was well aware of Illyrio's plans and also knew Gavin's concerns. At this time, she said softly, "Governor Illyrio, thank you for your concern. But as Gavin said, the fight for the Iron Throne involves many factors, and we need to consider it carefully." Illyrio's eyes lit up after hearing this, and he seemed to see the glimmer of hope, and said quickly, "Your Highness the Princess is wise. As long as you and Sir Gavin need it, I will definitely use all my resources to help you. After all, let Targaryen, it is also my sincere wish that the family regain control of the Iron Throne." Gavin glanced at Daenerys, and then said to Illyrio, "We will discuss this matter again. But for now, please ask Governor Illyrio to give us some time and space." Illyrio nodded and bowed, Of course, of course. Then I won't disturb you two for now. I look forward to hearing your good news soon." After saying that, he bowed again and slowly retreated, his figure in the sunset. He looked a little lonely in the afterglow. After Illyrio left, Gavin and Daenerys looked at each other. Gavin said slowly, "There are some things you may not know yet. Your father's former Prime Minister John Clinton, Intelligence Chief Varys, and Illyrio, the governor of Pentos just now, worked together to formulate a plan in an attempt to nominate Aegon Targaryen, the eldest son of your brother Rhaegar, who was taken out of the Red Keep by Varys, to take back the Iron Throne." Daenerys's eyes widened after hearing this, full of shock, and she murmured, "So, my nephew is still alive?" Gavin waved his hand and said, "That's not the case. The dramatic problem is here. Varys did not bring out Aegon, and it happened that Illyrio's Lys wife gave birth to a child with Valyrian characteristics at that time. A boy, so he and Varys deceived Jon Connington, claiming that the child was Aegon Targaryen, and gave the child to Jon Connington to raise. Later, Jon Connington took this so-called child. Aegon went to the Golden Company to try to gain the support of the Cold Irons. Daenerys became more and more shocked after hearing this. She gritted her teeth and said angrily, "How dare they do this?" Gavin smiled faintly and said, "There is nothing to dare. With the former Prime Minister and the Intelligence Director who has the ability to turn around, the child will have the basis for his identity. Their previous plan was to push you and Viserys to in front of the stage, attract the attention of the Iron Throne, marry you to the Horse King to obtain troops to attack Westeros, then secretly support Aegon, and look for opportunities to seize the Iron Throne from the chaotic Westeros." Daenerys wondered, "Then why didn't you expose him just now?" Gavin replied, "They want to use us to attract the attention of the Iron Throne. However, with or without their push, the Iron Throne will pay attention to us. In turn, I am also using them. After all, Varys is still working for the Iron Throne today. Effective, he has the ability to make things more chaotic in Westeros." Looking at Daenerys, who was immersed in thought and looking troubled, Gavin gently held her hand and asked with concern, "Do you want to take back the Iron Throne?" Hearing Gavin's question, Daenerys suddenly came back to her senses, her expression gloomy and hesitant, and she slowly said, I don't know. I haven't even seen the Red Castle with my own eyes. I only heard about it from my brother. He described a lot to me. I don't even remember the Dragonstone Island where I was born. I only remember the house with a red gate by the sea. Then Daenerys raised her head and stared at Gavin, and asked softly, "What about you, Gavin? Do you want the Iron Throne?" Hearing this, Gavin slowly leaned back in the chair behind him and said softly, "Fate has arranged us together, and some things are not up to me to decide. I remember what someone said, in the Game of Thrones, if you don't win, you will only die, there is no middle ground. I guess the next time Robert sends an assassin, the target may be me." Gavin also understood that it was a bit too early for him to face the Iron Throne with his current strength, but since he had faced it, there was nothing to be afraid of. Chapter 78 Moon Chant Celebration. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Illyrio left the seaside villa in a hurry, and his fat body looked a little clumsy under the rapid pace. He quickly took a carriage back to his residence. As soon as he entered the room, he couldn't wait to walk to the desk, picked up the quill pen, dipped it in ink, and began to write a letter. "Varys, my old friend, our plan has gone terribly wrong. I failed to take Viserys and Daenerys away, and Viserys was killed by the assassin sent by Robert Baratheon. Before his death, he married Daenerys to Gavin Bellerys. I have confirmed that Gavin's dragon is more than 20 meters long, huge in size, and extremely powerful. In addition, I have tested the other party and found that he has a certain intention to seize the Iron Throne. I wonder if we should change our plan and see how we can use them. We originally planned to use Daenerys to exchange for the Horse King's army, but now that we have exchanged for a fleet, it is not impossible, but Viserys is dead, and the next plan is a bit tricky. Your old friend Illyrio. I look forward to your reply." After writing the letter, Illyrio blew the ink that had not dried yet, folded the letter carefully, and then called his confidant to send the letter as quickly as possible. He sat in a chair, frowning, thinking over and over again about the possible developments in his heart. The morning sun shines on the land of Bravos. Gavin takes Daenerys to attend the Moonsinger celebration and visit the bustling Bravos. They slowly walk into the garden, where Blazing Shadow is sleeping soundly. Gavin walks up to him and gently strokes his scales. Daenerys asks curiously, "Gavin, are we going to ride on dragons?" Gavin smiles and replies, "If we ride on dragons, I'm afraid there won't be much to watch." Then, Gavin tells Daenerys solemnly about the faceless men who might appear. Hearing Gavin's explanation, Daenerys looked worried and said, "Gavin, why don't we go? It's too dangerous. I have lost everything. Now I only have you." Gavin touched her head and said, "Don't worry, believe in my strength. This is also an opportunity. Maybe we can lure out the faceless man. It's better than being on guard against him all the time. In addition, let me show you the ability of Blazing Shadow." Daenerys thought of the blazing shadow that rushed out of Gavin's palm that day, and immediately asked curiously, "Gavin, huh? Are you talking about the magic that turns Blazing Shadow into flames?" Gavin smiled and said, "This is not magic, this is Blazing Shadow's ability." Then, as if sensing Gavin's intentions, the sleeping Blazing Shadow also woke up slowly and turned his head to look at the two people beside him. Then Gavin gave an order to Blazing Shadow, "Blazing Shadow, rise into the fire." After hearing this, Blazing Shadow stood up, shook his head, stretched his wings, kicked the ground hard and flew into the air, and then turned into a ball of fire and rushed towards Gavin. In Daenerys's worshipful and obsessed eyes, Blazing Shadow successfully merged into Gavin's body. Daenerys asked excitedly, "Gavin, can I learn this ability in the future?" When she learned that Gavin had 11 dragon eggs last night, the desire for dragons in her blood could no longer be suppressed. Gavin first thought about it. It seemed that he needed the ability of a fire wizard. Then he thought of Daenerys's unburned system and guessed that it might work, but the dragon must be included in the rule to advance. Will the dragon that enters the rule still be loyal to others? Gavin, who was temporarily uncertain, then said, "I'm not sure, but I can try." In the bustling streets of Bravos, Gavin walked with Daenerys and 8 majestic senior blood dragon guards. Gavin was dressed in gorgeous clothes and wore an exquisite sword on his waist. He looked focused and alert, and his eyes swept across the bustling crowd from time to time, trying to catch any signs of abnormality. Daenerys was wearing a lavender dress, her beautiful face was full of curiosity and excitement, and she stopped from time to time to look at the novelties on the street. 8 blood dragon guards closely surrounded Gavin and Daenerys. They were tall, and their armor shone coldly in the sun. Their red eyes were as sharp as eagles, always paying attention to the movements around them. The merchants on the street shouted enthusiastically, selling all kinds of exquisite handicrafts and delicious food. Children ran by with laughter. The cheerful music of the musicians and the laughter of the people intertwined, forming a sea of joy. Gavin whispered to Daenerys, "Dear, follow me carefully, maybe the faceless man is hiding in this crowd." Daenerys nodded slightly, and her hand unconsciously grasped Gavin's sleeve. They walked slowly forward, and Gavin secretly hoped that this trip would lead to the mysterious faceless man hidden in the dark. Before they knew it, Gavin and his companions arrived at the Isle of the Gods in Braavos, where numerous temples were scattered in an orderly manner. The most spectacular one among them was the Temple of the Moon Singers. This temple is a magnificent snow-white marble palace with a large silver dome and milky white glass windows showing different states of the moon. A pair of tall marble statues of girls stand by each door, gracefully supporting the crescent-shaped door beams. The history of this Temple of the Moon Singers can be traced back to a long time ago. At that time, there was a group of nomads called the Jogsnai on the continent of Essos. In their tribe, there were Jaha who was responsible for fighting, and Moon Singers who were responsible for prayer, treatment, judgment and other internal affairs. Moon Singers were usually women. In the origin story of Braavos, the Moonsingers played a crucial role. Back then, a shipload of slaves transported from Sithorios to the Valyrian freehold rose up in rebellion. Among them, a group of slave girls from the Jogsnai Plains took control of the slave ship and decided to sail north. These slave girls were the Moonsingers. They predicted that behind the pine-covered hills and sea reefs, there was a lagoon where fog covered the whole year, which could block the eyes of the Dragon King flying overhead, making it an ideal refuge for everyone. In the end, their prophecy came true. The slaves successfully found this safe place and established Braavos here. In order to commemorate the achievements of the Moonsingers, people built the largest temple in the city, the Temple of the Moonsingers. It is not only a tribute and gratitude to the Moonsingers, but also an important symbol of Braavos' history. Around the Temple of the Moonsingers, you can also see other temples of different styles. For example, the red stone temple of the Lord of Light stood on an island where the Canal of Heroes met the long channel, connected to the rest of Braavos by a great bridge. Atop a huge square tower was an iron brazier 20 feet in diameter, in which a great flame burned, and there were smaller fires on either side of the temple's bronze door. Chapter 79 Red Temple. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In addition to these two temples, there may have been temples dedicated to other gods. Some of these temples are solemn, some are mysterious and quiet, and together they constitute the unique religious landscape of Braavos. Gavin and Daenerys walked along the paths between the temples, feeling the strong religious atmosphere here. At this moment, a red-robed monk wearing bright red robes and a low-hanging hood walked towards them with steady steps. The red-robed monk stopped a few steps away from them, bowed slightly respectfully, folded his hands on his chest, and said in a tone full of respect and piety, "Dear Dragon King of Valyria, and noble ladies, the High Priest of my temple has sent me here with sincerity to invite you two to enter the Red Temple." Gavin and Daenerys looked at each other, with a hint of surprise and hesitation in their eyes. Daenerys frowned slightly and looked at Gavin, as if waiting for his decision. Gavin pondered for a moment, then nodded politely to the priest and said, "Thanks to the High Priest's kind invitation, we are willing to go." A look of gratitude immediately appeared on the priest's face. He turned sideways and made a gesture of invitation. "Please follow me, two distinguished guests." They followed the priest into the Red Temple. As soon as I stepped into the temple, a solemn and fiery atmosphere hit my face. The walls of the temple are made of deep and bright red masonry, with mysterious symbols of fire and light carefully carved on them, as if telling ancient and sacred stories. Tall stone pillars support the majestic dome, and the stone pillars are wrapped with bright golden flame patterns, shining with mysterious light. Countless red candles are arranged orderly around, and the beating candlelight interweaves into a warm and blurry scene. The red-robed monk on the side introduced them. This red temple is dedicated to the great Lord of Light, R'hllor. The Lord of Light has endless power, and his flames can illuminate the darkness and bring hope and strength. Daenerys thought of all the legends about the red-robed monks from the outside world, and couldn't help but ask, it is said that the red-robed monks can control fire. Is this true? That the red-robed monk nodded. Flame is a symbol of the power of the King of Light. Under certain circumstances, we can use the power of the King of Light to control the flame. But this is not to show off, but to realize the will of the King of Light. They walked slowly along the passage paved with gorgeous red carpets, embroidered with the majestic and eye-catching emblem of the Lord of Light. Finally, we came to the main hall. In a huge brazier in the center, blazing flames shot straight up, and the blazing heat waves billowed, filling the entire space with an awe-inspiring temperature. In front of the brazier, the high priest stood quietly. He was tall and majestic, and his face under the hood flickered in and out of light, adding a bit of mystery. The high priest first bowed deeply to Gavin and Daenerys to show respect, then straightened up, looked at Gavin gently and intently, and said slowly, "Dear Dragon King of Valyria, my name is Essos, the high priest of the temple. Have you ever heard of the prophecy about Azor Ahai?" Gavin looked solemn, nodded slightly, and replied sincerely, "I have indeed heard something." The high priest nodded and spoke of the prophecy. It is said that after the long summer, the stars will weep blood, and a cold and endless darkness will cover the entire world. At that time, a brave and fearless warrior will pull out the burning sword from the raging fire. That sword is the bringer of light, the red sword of heroes, and the one who holds this sword is the reincarnation of Azor Ahai, who will shoulder the sacred mission of driving away the darkness and saving the world. Gavin asked doubtfully, "This is the prophecy I have heard. May I ask, Your Majesty the High Priest, is there any problem with this?" The High Priest explained, "We seek guidance from the Lord of Light through prayers and rituals. At some point, we may gain the ability to prophesy, and in this blazing fire, I saw the power of the northern cold god I am awakening. The undead legion is about to move south, and the shadow of coldness and death is gradually spreading. At the same time, I see your figure in the north. Perhaps, you are the destined one." The high priest continued, "The King of Light is in opposition to the god of cold. Only by wholeheartedly believing in the King of Light and relying on his power can we hope to resist the invasion of the cold god's servants." Gavin's eyes were wary and he responded cautiously, "Does the high priest want me to believe in R'hllor, the Lord of Light?" The high priest nodded solemnly and said, "That's right, respected Dragon King. At this moment when darkness is about to fall, only the power of the King of Light can protect you and your people." Gavin was silent for a moment, thoughts racing in his mind. He knew very well that there were gods in this world, but compared to the so-called 7 gods, they seemed to have no power to show. But precisely because of this, the unknown and powerful power of the King of Light made him full of fear and caution. The consequences of rashly dealing with such a powerful and unknown god are really unpredictable. Thinking of Gavin's intention to refuse, he raised his head and said, "This matter is no small matter. I have always believed in the 7 gods and will not change my belief rashly." The high priest sighed slightly and said solemnly, "Dear Dragon King, there are only 2 true gods in this world, R'hllor, the King of Light, and his mortal enemy, the cold god. The 7 gods you believe in are nothing more than false existences." Gavin frowned and said with an unhappy expression, "Your words lack respect for the believers in the 7 gods. I won't care too much about it here. Please allow me to leave." Daenerys looked at Gavin, then at the high priest, and said, "Thank you for the invitation and explanation today. We will take our leave now." The high priest hurriedly said, "Dragon King, please stay. I have something that may change your view of the power of the Lord of Light." As he spoke, the high priest took out a ruby emitting a strange light from his arms. "This gem contains the power of the Lord of Light R'hllor." Gavin felt that the gem in front of him was very similar to the one Melisandre wore on her chest. He remembered that Melisandre relied on this gem to gain an ageless face. and he couldn't help but be a little curious. Gavin hesitated for a moment, reached out and touched the gem, and instantly felt the surging magic in it. The magic in the gem could bring him a huge energy boost, but he quickly restrained his inner impulse, worried about the unknown risks that might be hidden in it. He had the panel, so he just needed to develop steadily, and there was no need to be so urgent. Gavin took a deep breath and said, "Thank you for your kindness. I still need to consider matters of faith carefully. We will take our leave now." The high priest wanted to say something, but seeing Gavin's firm attitude, he had to say, "In that case, I will not force you to stay. Dragon King and Lady, please do as you please." So, Gavin and Daenerys turned around and left the Red Temple under the guidance of the red-robed monk beside them. Chapter 80 Funny Disguise. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. After Gavin and Daenerys walked out of the Red Temple, they once again joined the lively celebration, but Gavin's mind had drifted away. He secretly wondered, why did I attract the attention of the Red God? Why did the Lord of Light R'hllor want me to believe in him? I know that the White Walkers in the north exist, but if we calculate the time, it will take many years for them to completely go south. Originally, after leaving Braavos, 30 armed merchant ships would go to the north to purchase timber, but now I don't know whether this trip will go smoothly. I can attract the attention of the Lord of Light R'hllor, which may not attract the attention of the God of Cold. I will go with him to see it. Since I came to this world, I have changed a lot of the future. If things continue like this, I am afraid that my confrontation with the White Walkers is inevitable. It may be wise to go outside the Great Wall in the north to see the situation in advance. At this time, Daenerys pulled Gavin's arm, interrupting Gavin's thoughts. He turned around and looked at the other party. Daenerys pointed excitedly and said, "Gavin, look over there." The actors were performing a drama on the high platform in front of the Temple of the Moon. Daenerys couldn't wait to run over, and Gavin hurried to catch up. On the high platform, the actors performed the plot of the drama with passion and emotion, which attracted cheers and applause from the audience from time to time. Gavin and Daenerys were also deeply attracted by this wonderful performance and immersed in it. Night fell quietly, and the night celebration in Braavos became more lively. The bright lights illuminated every corner, the jubilant crowd, and the melodious music made the whole Braavos seem to have become a sea of joy. Gavin and Daenerys enjoyed it all to their heart's content and strolled tirelessly for a long time. It was not until Daenerys panted and said, "Gavin, I'm a little tired." Only then did Gavin realize that he was also a little tired. So, they decided to go back, Gavin thought as he walked. He had been looking forward to meeting the faceless men all day, but there was no sign of them. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Not long after the two walked, Gavin could already see the seaside villa in the distance. The surroundings seemed quite quiet, in sharp contrast to the bustle of the streets before. At this time, Gavin saw a blood dragon guard running towards him from the direction of the seaside villa. He was quite confused, thinking that something had happened, and his eyes were fixed on the other person's eyes. Suddenly, Gavin understood and laughed out loud. He never expected that the faceless men would actually approach him in the guise of a blood dragon guard. Before the faceless men came close, the two senior blood dragon guards behind Gavin rushed out instantly. They were like lightning. One of them took a step forward and punched the faceless man in the abdomen, causing him to bend down instantly. The other quickly grabbed the faceless man's arm, twisted it hard, and kicked the faceless man's knees at the same time, and controlled the faceless man to the ground in a few moves. His limbs were firmly controlled by the senior blood dragon guards, and his body was forced to kneel on the ground. Gavin pulled Daenerys and walked slowly towards him, standing in front of the faceless man. Daenerys was very surprised and asked Gavin, "Isn't this your guard?" Gavin looked at Daenerys and said, "If it was my blood dragon guard, I would know that he is a faceless man." Then, a senior blood dragon guard grabbed the faceless man's hair, lifted his head, and tore off the mask on his face. After the mask was torn off, a strange face appeared in front of Gavin, but his eyes were still the same red as the blood dragon guards. Gavin looked into the faceless man's eyes and asked curiously, "I know you can change your appearance, but how do your eyes do it?" The other party looked at Gavin and said coldly, "Gavin Bellerys, you refused the gift of the thousand-faced god, and now you owe the thousand-faced god a life." Gavin smiled slightly, his expression calm, and said resolutely, "I don't owe anyone's life." The faceless man responded coldly, "The will of the thousand-faced god cannot be disobeyed." Gavin's eyes were sharp, staring at the faceless man, and he said decisively, "So what? I have my own destiny, and I will never let the so-called gods manipulate me at will." The faceless man stopped talking and just looked at Gavin with a sneer. Seeing this, Gavin asked lightly, "I want to know who hired you." However, Gavin waited for a long time, but did not get any response. Then, one of the faceless man's arms was instantly twisted off by the blood dragon guard, but the faceless man gritted his teeth and still looked at Gavin with a sneer, refusing to speak, seeing that he was stubborn. The other arm was also twisted off by the blood dragon guard in an instant. At this moment, the faceless man finally stopped sneering, and sweat continued to emerge from his forehead as he endured the pain. Gavin looked at the faceless man and secretly sighed in his heart, he is really a tough guy. At this time, Daenerys behind Gavin showed a worried look on her face and gently pulled the corner of Gavin's clothes. Gavin patted her hand, indicating that she was relieved, and then said to the faceless man, "How about I make a deal with you? What price the other party paid to kill me, I will pay the same price to stop this assassination." At this time, the faceless man finally spoke, "You have already owed a debt to the thousand-faced god, and it cannot be changed." After hearing this, Gavin no longer paid attention to the faceless man, but instead pulled Daenerys' hand and walked towards the seaside villa. The blood dragon guards behind him quickly broke the faceless man's limbs and lifted him up to follow behind him. Daenerys asked Gavin worriedly, "What are you going to do?" Gavin said, "This is Bravos. We are guests in the territory of the Sea King. The other party promised to guarantee our safety. When something like this happened, of course we have to find the owner." Outside the Sea King's palace at night, the moonlight was like water, sprinkled on the ancient building, outlining a mysterious outline. The sea breeze blew gently, with a hint of salty and bitter smell. Tyran Rien learned the news and hurriedly came from the Sea King's palace. He was in a hurry, and his clothes fluttered in the wind. Seeing Gavin and Daenerys waiting here, he hurriedly walked towards Gavin and said, "I'm very sorry, Sir Gavin, I never expected such a thing to happen." Gavin said politely, "It's okay, I don't think His Royal Highness the Sea King wants this to happen." The other party's messenger immediately said, "His Royal Highness the Sea King is waiting for you in the palace, please follow me." After that, the messenger turned around and led the way. Gavin and his party followed behind him and walked towards the Sea King's palace. At this time, the Sea King's palace was brightly lit, and countless candlelight shone through the carved windows, like bright stars. On both sides of the steps outside the palace, there stood a row of guards holding torches, and the flickering flames lengthened their shadows. Walking into the palace, the spacious hall was magnificent, and the gorgeous murals looked lifelike under the candlelight, as if telling an ancient story.